Good morning, boys and girls of all ages. Welcome to the Museum of Native American History's monthly program, Hear Our Voices. We want to welcome Richard Zane Smith today. Usually we have the fabulous Gail Ross do the introductions, and she's a Cherokee storyteller that is curating this program for us. And I want to tell you, the storytellers are the pinnacle of all beings for me to connect the past, present, and future and keep these oral traditions alive. Today, again, we're going to have our storyteller come up, but Richard is more than just a storyteller. He has joined our museum family. He is so extraordinary as an artist, as someone who keeps tradition and technique alive, and it is just absolutely our honor to introduce him today. With that, my friends, the squirrels, would like to welcome Richard Zane Smith.
Tijame. First, I'll introduce myself in the Wyandot language. Kwekwe o materu, ne kwekwe tijaaha, sohahio, ijatse, ne Richard Zane Smith. Aquatra sayomende akoyehti, ne de Rome de Wyandot. Ajatu ne Wyandot, Oklahoma, Indare. And just allow you to hear the language being spoken. I said my name is Richard Zane Smith, also Sohahio. That's the name given to me in the longhouse here. And it means he has a good road, a good path. It was the name my mother chose for me. And then I'm from the northeast corner of Oklahoma, where there's many different tribes in this area. We have, I'll miss one or two, but there's the Wyandot, the Seneca Cayuga, there's the Ottawa, the Peoria, the, let's see, Shawnee, Eastern Shawnee. We have the, let's see, okay, I'm already forgetting some of them. But anyway, there's a good group of us here. Some are Algonquin speakers, some are Iroquoian speakers, so we have different language groups as well. And of course, these lands once belonged to other bands of people that came through here before history was even written. And we still find evidence of them, you know, as we're walking along, and you find artifacts and things in the creek or whatever. So we should always be reminded that the ancient people, our ancestors, have always been on this land. They've been walking here for thousands of years. And I do have a lot of stories. We can go on forever on these, but one, I'm going to tell a story this morning, especially for kids. Now, hopefully, I'm going to get help from one of my friends. His name is Kwajaqwe, and it's a Wyandot word that means, it has something to do with the eyes, the mask around the eyes. And some of you guys will probably recognize this guy when he shows himself. And I'll see if I can wake him up, because he's going to help me. But I have to tell you right now, I said, it's been a hard day for him, because he just realized, well, I had to break it to him that he's just a puppet. He didn't know that. For years, he thought he was the real thing. And it is a little frustrating, you know, to be told that you're not real. You're not real. So he's having a hard time accepting that fact, but let's see if I can get him to come out. Kwajaqwe, why? Come here. You want to help out? You want to help us with the storytelling? He looks kind of sleepy, like he's been laying, his ears all bent out. Kwajaqwe, we really could use your help, because, I mean, it helps the kids to see what's going on when they hear from you. And you're going to be like one of the main characters, okay? I don't know if this is going to work or not, but we'll give it a try and we'll see. Maybe if we can get some help from, you know, some of the kids, if we just know that the kids out there really want his help, and if they could just say, Taye Gera, it just means help us, help me. Then maybe he'll he'll hear that. Now I know you can't all be, put on the speaker at once, but just say Tayegira Kujakwe. Tayegira.
Yeah.
Did you hear it? Will you please help then? Okay. He's going to help. All right, good. Now, this is an old Wyandot story, and there's many animal stories we have. And of course, these are the winter months. So winter time, this is the time we talk about animals that talk, because any other time of the year, we're not really supposed to talk about animals that talk, because do you know why? Well, they've told us different things. They've told us, there's all kinds of justifications for it. It's like people will get lazy because they're sitting around telling stories all the time. But the one that usually sticks with kids is, if you tell wintertime stories in the summer, the snakes will get in bed with you. And you don't like that, do you? No, he doesn't like that either. So that's usually what I tell the kids anyway, that I'm telling these stories with. And as long as it's cold and the snakes aren't out, we can tell stories. But anyway, so we're going to tell a story about Kujakwe. And this is a story that starts out a cold winter morning, and he wakes up and he's shivering and he's kind of cold, and he realizes he needs to get out and walk around and shake a limb. Good job. He's kind of got to warm himself up. And he walked out of the little long house, and he started to walk down to the creek to get a drink of water. And as he was walking, he started to sing a little song, and he's just, and he got to the creek, and while he was down there getting a drink, he saw what looked like a crawdad tail sticking out of a rock. Underneath a rock was a pretty good sized crawdad tail. And he thought, oh man, he loves crawdads. He loves crawdads, don't you? So he thought, well, I'm going to just reach down there and grab him by the tail. And so he reached his paw down in the water, in that cold, icy water. Right about the time he got close to that tail, that crawdad turned around and goes, that looks like Kujakwe's paw. Well, I'll teach him a lesson. And that crawdad went and just pinched him right on the paw. And he just shook his hand. He was like, oh. Now, Kujakwe was upset. He was a little mad about this. But he thought, I'm not going to give up. I am not going to give up. I'm going to try again. And this time I'm going to reach on the other side of the rock. And so he did. He reached down in the water. And just as he was wiggling his hand under that rock, the crawdad saw him again, saw his paw, and said, he's not learning a lesson, is he? And so same thing happened. He got pinched, and he just shook his paw so hard. Ow. Oh man. And then he started to walk around. He was just getting mad thinking about it. He wanted those crawdads. He wanted a crawdad. He's walking around thinking, and all of a sudden an idea came to him. It's like, I know what I'm going to do. He went up into the woods, crawled up behind the creek, up into the woods, and he found an old rotten tree. This tree had fallen over, and he started digging through all that stuff. And he found some old rotten fungus, and he dug around in there some more, and he found some old dried up, mashed up worms and some bugs and crunchy things, and he's in there, and he pulls all this stuff out, and the worse smelling, the better. He pulls all this stuff out, and he just starts putting it all over his fur. All the dead bugs, all the smearing, squishy worms that were dead, all over himself. He just got coated with it. And then he found a pine tree that had some sticky sap, and he rubbed his back on that tree, And he went and rolled in all the leaves, and it just had leaves stuck to him. He looked like a total mess. He was a total mess. Then he went down to the creek, right at the edge of the creek, and he laid down right there on the edge of the creek. His little paw was just kind of hanging out over the water. He just laid there. No, lay down. He just lay there. Now, in time, that crawdad who was under the rock was wondering if it was safe to come out. And so it came out and it peeked up out of the water. And sure enough, he saw Quizaqui laying there. First, he got scared and he went back in. But a little while later, he peeked again. And Quizaqui is still there. And he looked terrible. He looked horrible. So he peeked again and he saw that paw just hanging out over there. And he gave it a little pinch. Nothing happened. He thought, I think Quizaqui is dead. I think he's dead. I'm going to go tell our friends. So he went back to all the crawdads that he knew, all his friends, and he said, Quizaqui is dead. And he's just laying there on the bank, and we could eat him for weeks. There's a lot of meat on him. We could have a good time. And so they all got together and they started celebrating. But one of them said, we probably ought to talk to the war chief. He's pretty smart about these kind of things. We better ask his opinion on this, because you know how it is. Quizaqui can be pretty sneaky. He might be faking it. He might not be dead at all. He's not behaving very well. Okay, just lay there, please. Okay, so they did. They went and they found the war chief. Now, a reason the war chief was so important in those days and why they were chosen by the clan mothers is because these men, they weren't just brave in battle, but they also wanted to save their men from unnecessary violence and stuff. So they were very wise. And so they went to them, Crawdad war chief, and they said, what do you think we ought to do? There's Quizaqui's body's right over there by the creek. And it's just laying there. He looks horrible. He smells and everything. What do you think we should do? And that war chief started to think. And he said, well, has anybody tried giving him a good pinch? And the other one crawdad said, I did. I pinched him. Nothing happened. He goes, I don't know. Quizaqui can be pretty tricky. I wouldn't trust him. Maybe we should try something else. Before we just go out there, put our lives at risk, let's try something else. I need a volunteer. Is there somebody that'll volunteer that will get up out of the water? And I'll tell you what to do after. And so, all these crawdads were putting their pincher up in the air going, they're volunteering, so all these volunteers. But he looked around, the war chief, he looked around and saw one that he knew was pretty brave and dependable and said, okay, you're chosen. And he said, what do I do? So he said, well, this is what you do. We're going to all go with you to the edge of the bank, the creek bank, where Quizaqui is laying. You are going to crawl up out of the water, go toward his back end, over his tail, up over his belly, walk all the way up his chest, and peek inside his mouth. Now, if his mouth is just stinking horrible, you'll know he's dead. And then we'll have a great time. We're going to feast on Quizaqui for a week. So we'll be chopping him up into little pieces. Yum, yum. So this is what they did. All those crawdad, they all went together, made a big group. They all went over to the edge where they could just see his hand just sitting there over the water. Some of them actually reached up and pinched it. Nothing happened. So, but here comes the brave one. He crawled up onto the bank, went over the tail, started crawling over his belly. Just crawling right over the belly. It's like, this guy's brave. He's really brave or he's crazy. And he went right up to his mouth and he opened it up and he looked inside and he went, oh. Oh, stinks bad, really smelly. So he got off of Kujaqwe. He went back in the water and he said, he's dead. Oh, yeah, he's definitely dead. He smells horrible, but he'll be delicious. He'll be delicious. So they all got excited and they planned a big get together and a big feast that evening. And they were going to do a standing quiver dance first, and where they all get out of the water and they make a big circle around Kujaqwe and they start to dance. And there's a standing quiver dance, which the men in the old days would start their war party with, where it would be a callback, kind of like a stomp dance. It's really a Wyandot stomp dance. And so they did. They all got in a circle and they started to dance around Kujaqwe. Hoyo, 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 hoeha, 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 haneo, 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 wee. And with that, the war chief said, okay, this is our starting song. The next time we go around, we're going to go all the way around them and we're going to sing this next song. And then once we do, I'll give the word. And as soon as I say, he says, everybody come rushing into him and you can all take a bite off of them and we're just going to have a big feast. So that's what they started to do. So the war chief started the song. Yo e kuyane, yo e kuyane. They all answered. Yo e kuyane, 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 yo e kuyane. Yo e kuyane, 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 yo e kuyane. And right about the time they made a full circle, he goes, whee, hey, and all the crawdads just charged him. And I mean, they just covered him. And as soon as they did, Kujaqwe jumps up and he grabs a crawdad here, crunch, drops it, grabs another one. Yep, they're getting away as fast as they can. They're all twoosh, twoosh, twoosh into the water. But Kujaqwe's fast. He grabs one, he grabs another, throws it on the side. He was going so fast, it was like a little fur streak. Just going on and on, back and forth, grabbing crawdads as they were trying to get away. And he was just having a great time thinking about, this is going to be so tasty. He got a pile of crawdads that morning. Man, he was so happy with himself and how he had fooled them. And so he took a long stick, which he found on the bank, and he started to poke all those crawdads on it. And he's carrying it home. He's walking along, carrying all those crawdads, and he's thinking, well, what should I do? Should I boil them? That takes a long time. Bake them? That takes a long time too. Fry them? Eat them raw? I could eat them raw. Yeah, you could eat them raw. Anyway, he's carrying his big, long stick, and he's walking around thinking about all the crunchiness, just the delightful crunchiness he's going to have that morning for breakfast. And just at that time, he sees his friend coming up the path, Skashu, the red fox. And Skashu's there and looks at him and says, cousin. He goes, you look pretty happy this morning. Now, Skashu's kind of lazy. He's always getting out of bed pretty early, late, much later than Kujaqwe. And Kujaqwe says, yep, I've been just fishing, getting some crawdads here for breakfast. And Skashu looked, he goes, how in the heck did you catch all those crawdads? He goes, yeah, I can't tell you. It's a family secret. I can't tell you. Nope, I can't tell you. I got to go home. I'm going to cook them right now. And Skashu said, whoa, wait a minute. Now, I have to remember, what time am I getting late here? Because this story is going to keep going. Otherwise, I don't have a clock here. I'm sorry, guys. What do we have? How much time do we have?
You have all the time you wish.
No kidding?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to get to the next. Okay, Skashu. he just kept asking him, and Kwajakwe just wanted to get rid of him. It's like he just goes, okay, all right, but you got to promise not to tell anybody. And Skashu says, I won't tell anybody. I won't tell a soul. He goes, okay, I know. If you start telling everybody, because I know where that story came from, and now everybody will be catching crawdads, and there won't be any left. Skashu said, I promise, I won't. And Kwajakwe says, well, to catch crawdads, you have to have a big, bushy tail. And Skashu goes, my tail's bushier than yours. He says, well, I don't know. Mine's pretty good here. And Skashu, where's Skashu? Man, I should have woke him up. He's over there sleeping. But he was saying, my tail's bushier than yours. I could. How do you catch crawdads with your tail? And he goes, you have to listen. You have to listen. You see on the edge of the creek down there, you see that ice? And Skashu says, yeah, I see the ice. I see the ice. How do I catch crawdads with my tail? Oh, man. Now, Kwajakwe, he had heard other stories about animals getting their tail caught in the ice. And he thought, maybe I can play a trick on him. He did. He said, Skashu, you have to go down to the ice and you have to put your tail right in that hole in the ice. And you have to sit there. And in time, those crawdads just get tangled up in your tail. And you just have to jump really hard. And you'll pull them all out. And you'll have all those crawdads just scattered on the ice. Just pick them up like sticks and take them home. And Skashu looked at him and goes, is that how you caught him? He goes, yep. Liar. Man, oh man. So anyway, that's what Skashu did. Now Skashu went down. We're going to have to say goodbye for you for a while. So you can go take those crawdads home and cook them up. And okay. So he's going to do that. Now, so Skashu, he went down to the ice. Just a second. I'm going to get him because I think he needs to be a part of this. All right. Skashu, are you there? Okay, come here. Wake up, dude. Wake up. Oh, man, you look even sleepier than Kwajakwe did. Oh, what am I doing here? You're part of the story. Okay. It's been a while. It's been a long winter for Skashu. All right, so Skashu, you remember the story being going down to the ice and catching crawdads? Okay, that's the one. So he went down to the ice and he took his nice big bushy tail and he stuck it down in that hole and he sat there on the ice. Ooh, is that cold? Ooh, die. Ooh. And he sat there and he thought, this is really cold. I don't know if I can do this. But he thought, if Kwajakwe can do it, I can do it. He sat there and he said, I will show Kwajakwe. My tail is a lot bushier than his. I'm going to catch a lot more crawdads than Kwajakwe could. So he sat there and he actually started to fall asleep. He sat so long. He felt a little something that woke him up, and it felt like something bumped his tail, and he got excited. He thought, oh, I think there's something there. But he thought, I'm just going to wait here a little longer. I'm going to wait just a little longer because if Kwajakwe can catch a few, I'm going to catch more. So he sat on the ice, just shivering until finally he couldn't stand it any longer. And he goes, okay, I'm going to jump out of here. Let's see, what did he tell me? Just put my hands on the ice and jump as hard as I could. And so he goes, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I guess I should be counting in Wyandot. Scott, Tandy, Sheck, and he jumped as hard as he could. Ah! Ow! He looked back and goes, what the heck is going on here? So I guess I have a lot of crawdads on my tail. I'm going to have to jump even harder. So this time he put all 4 legs and he sprung just like a spring, big metal spring. He jumped so hard he almost pulled his tail off. He goes, oh, 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 oh. Excuse me. Man, he realized right then Kwajokwe was fooling him. He goes, my tail is frozen in the ice. I can't believe it. I can't believe I listened to my cousin. I can't believe it. Oh, what am I going to do? He was miserable. He was standing there and the sun was getting lower. He'd been out there all day and his tail was just stuck. He couldn't even feel it anymore. Man, he was sitting there. He was starting to get desperate. He didn't see anybody, nobody around. Finally, he calls out, Dayegya! Dayegya! Help me, help me. He's saying, Dayegya! He didn't hear anything for the longest time. And then he saw something on the bank, on the creek bank. It was Tsutai, the beaver. Tsutai was over there and he was poking around with sticks and eating the bark off of some of the twigs. And he goes, Hawatanoro. He called him uncle. He goes, Hawatanoro, Hawaii, Hawaii. He says, come here, uncle. Hawaii. So Tsutai swam over to him and he said, Skashu, what are you doing out there on the ice? That looks kind of cold for you. And he goes, oh, I don't want to talk about it. I have a problem. Uncle, Hawatanoro, can you help me? My tail is stuck really bad in that hole. And Tsutai looked at him and said, how the heck did you do that? I don't want to talk about it. Can you help me or not? He goes, of course, I can help you. Tsutai jumped into the water, went down under the ice, swam up there where the tail had been, and man, he saw it was just frozen. So he started chipping away, chip, 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 chip. Ouch, 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 ouch. And he came back up and he said, wow, you are really stuck tight. And he said, I think I can get you out, but it might hurt a little bit. You might lose a little bit of hair on the end of your tail. But Skashu thought, that's okay. I just want to go home. So he, Tsutai, went back underwater and chiseled and chiseled and chiseled. And finally, Skashu felt it. He could pull his tail all the way out and it was just frozen wet and just, he couldn't even feel that thing. It was just like a rag hanging off of his rear end. Poor Skashu. He went home and he was so cold. He just went back in his bed and curled up in a ball and went to sleep thinking and dreaming of what he's going to do to get even with Kwajokwe. And these two characters, they will keep going on and on and on. One plays a trick on one, the other plays a trick on the other. They keep going back and forth, back and forth. If there's anything to learn from these lessons, it's just don't play a trick on somebody unless you want it done to you too. So anyway, that's the end of those stories. But like I say, they keep going and they get crazy. Some of them get very crazy. So this is a collection, the collection of Kwajokwe and Skashu stories that just go on and on. And those are the fun ones for kids. The kids love to hear about these characters and how they trick each other. I don't know. There's something really funny about that. The kids, I just think it's great.
So we've got a comment. Miss Valerie Storer says she doesn't have a question, but she loves a statement about good governance and how the older women choose the leaders. She loved the story so much.
Yeah, that was an important part of our society back then. Is that the clan mothers were the ones who watched these kids grow up in the village, and they'd say, that little guy, he's got some potential. He's a real leader, or that one, he gets mad too easy. We'll make him a hunter. We'll send him out on his own. It's like that little guy, and so that was amazing. So these women, they watched these guys grow up and they were able to select, who was to represent them in councils or hunters or like I say, the war chiefs and that kind of thing too. So, but that was such a part. Nobody questioned it. When a clan mother said, "This is what you're going to do," that was it. That was absolute. One of the names for a clan mother at the time, and the Mohawks still use this term, and it has something to do with she holds the horns. And in the old days, the person who was selected to be a representative of the clan at meetings and at all these councils and everything, we call them chiefs today, but they're more of a total representative of the clan. If the guy was getting up and just going on and on, rambling, or just speaking from the top of his head or something, and it continued, she might just come up behind him and take his headdress off. So it's kind of like she holds the horns. So if he's not doing his job, he's taken out. And that was a very embarrassing kind of situation. And it just rarely ever had to happen. It seems like some of these animal stories might have lessons, but some of them don't really have any lessons. You almost just have to invent a lesson out of it. It's like they're just crazy stories, and just to make everybody laugh. It's like some of our dances too. We have these dances that they're just for getting people together and having a good time. And so there's a lot of there's kind of a certain way of singing, and then the singer who is holding the drum at times would just interject these little sentences, just throw in a sentence. And sometimes it would just be something really silly and funny. Because we don't really have speakers today, who would recognize these things right off, it's not as exciting because, people don't recognize the language and recognize somebody. Oh, did you hear what he just said? He just threw that in the song, and but you'll see it sometimes at stomp dances, where we'll have stomp dances and people start throwing in these little silly English phrases, and one that you'll hear a lot too is like, "There was a man and his name was Jed." It's like right in the middle of a stomp dance, It's like, and they go on and on, so it's fun. And again, it's to get people loosened up and have a good time. And a lot of our social dances were that way. And we have a bunch that are like clan teases, so it's kind of like you prefer those of your own clan, or something like that. Or, and some of them, you almost have to understand the culture more. Like our word for a mule is tewahon tetsi, because what it describes, te is two, tewahon tetsi. So it's like 2 long ears. Well, that's also the word that's used for the deer with the Cayuga, and maybe the Seneca too. I'm not sure. But so when they introduce themselves and say they're Tehuahontes, deer clan, to us it sounds like you're saying mule clan, or so it produces a lot of teases that have been around for generations. So that's kind of fun. But these things are not just to make people mad, but they're to get people laughing together and having a good time.
Eldrina Duma, I probably pronounced that incorrect. I apologize. But she asks, what Wyandot group are you a member of? My daughter just moved from Wyandot or Wyandotte.
Wyandot.
Wyandot?
Mm-hmm.
Wyandot, Oklahoma.
Yeah. There's actually 4 different groups. There's a group in Anderson, Michigan, which is kind of outside of Detroit. And then there's a group in Kansas, which is where my mother's family's from. And then there's this Oklahoma group. They're all pretty much related. We all have family in every one of these. And then there's one that's in Quebec, the Wyandot people up in Quebec, and they're more distantly related, and our languages are very close. Linguists are still debating whether it's dialect differences or it's a different language. But at one time, we all were together up in Ontario. So Ontario was the homelands of the Wyandot. Out of removals and being dispossessed and taken off lands and pushed here and there. We've been all over the place, yeah, for sure. But it's a Longhouse people. It's an Iroquoian language. So all our sister languages, we have, Seneca, Cayuga, Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga. Onondaga is supposed to be pretty close to Wyandot. I haven't really studied Onondaga, but they say it's pretty close. But it helps us because we know, we can check with Onondagas, say, and see what the words they're using. If we don't have a word for something, we'll find out how they arrived at a word for something. And so it's good having those sister languages. Very different than the Yuchi, who have the problem not having sister languages around. They have to come up with their own situation. They have to come up with their own words. That, yeah, we're fortunate in that way.
Veronica Perez says her daughter asks, "Raccoon, why are you such a sneaky trickster?"
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I don't know. I think he's just always been that way. He's just ornery, and yeah, how do you get like that? Maybe he gets away with it. That's probably part of it. Now, in the old Wyandot days, children were never scolded at all. I mean, now it's interesting because they could grow up and be little terrors running around and nobody would yell at them or anything. And if they did, the kids would just get so heartbroken, that they would just feel like they didn't want to live anymore. But the parents also had to learn how to control their emotions. It was good training for them because in council, that's the last thing you wanted to do when you had to stand up and speak before people, is to show anger or to show that you're really upset with something that was said. You had to be so cool and diplomatic. And diplomacy is something that our people were masters of. So anytime when you're being teased or when you're being poked at or somebody's trying to pick a fight with you, that's the perfect time. Our people would take those as times to show how tough you were and that the words just came and fell off of you, But yeah, somebody like Kojakwe, it's kind of like he's going the opposite way. He's everything you don't want to be. He's just really being naughty, really naughty.
We have Valerie Stower saying that she enjoyed hearing the Wyandot language, but she says, "Excuse this very basic question," but she's just asking if you can clarify that the language used in today's story, is it Wyandot?
Yes, that was all Wyandot language, yeah. So yeah, like in the counting, Scott, Tandy, Shek, Nak, Wish, Waja, Tsitari, Tari, and Tron, Saint, all the way up to 10. We have nasals and we have regular vowels. So we have the E vowel, it just means A. And then we have the eh. And we don't have an O in our language, but we do have on, so we have that and then we have a nasal A. It's more of a sound. But really, it's not that complicated. We have a je sound, which is really interesting because the Wyandot up in Quebec don't have it. They don't have a je. And you think, boy, if there's any French influence, it would think it would be that, but not necessarily. Navajos have a je too. So, but yeah, it's a whole different way of thinking though, having to it's kind of like you're building words as you go. When you speak it, you're building words because one word can be a whole sentence. And so you're putting your pronominal prefixes, where you're going or how often something's repetitious, something that's happening over and over. And then you put, the object, and then sometimes you attach a verb to it to make it, like it's a long, we could say nouns and verbs. It's all nouns and verbs. Verb means anything that has to do with action that's or length or, so it's kind of like a longhouse. Yano shuwane, or that's a big house. Yano shetse is long. But, in the past, we wouldn't have called it a longhouse because it was just a house. We didn't know, there are distinctions. Yanosha. Yeah. So nosh, would be the word for, that's the root. That's that part you see in there, nosh. Yanosha just means it's a house. It's a house. But yeah, it's a beautiful language, and when it's continually spoken, it has a beautiful flow to it, and I use it in our green corn ceremonies here in the late summer. I'll be speaking the language for about 45 minutes. It's all in the language, and I do have to interpret, because otherwise people go to sleep. They don't know what I'm saying, so I have to stop once in a while and interpret it, go back and forth from English to Wyandot. But yeah, and nobody knows where the Y came from in Wyandot, because you don't say it, when you're speaking the language. It's just Wyandot, Wyandot.